he has had some very choice things to say about a bunch of childless cat ladies who are running the country.
Like, just because you don't have your own biological children does not mean you don't have a stake in what happens in the future.
That comment to me reeks of what Scott Morrison did when he stood up there and said, oh, I spoke to my wife, Jenny, and she said, imagine if it was one of our daughters. I think it is a requirement of a politician to be able to have empathy for somebody who lives a different life to you. But that means that if you lack that empathy, how on earth are you able to represent the many different minorities that sit across a country? Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Laura.
I'm Brittany, and we have Olympic fever.
Do we?
What? Is it fever? I don't know. We've been talking about the Olympics all morning.
I mean, I don't think I have a fever for the Olympics. Maybe I shouldn't say that because I know that the Olympics are exciting and I know that it's the games that brings the world together. But I have seen very little except for the handball and the skateboarding, both of which are very obscure. But I was into it.
Is that just because the skateboarding was playing when we walked into work this morning? Because did you see that?
No, it was last night. I came home and the Olympics were on the TV and it was skateboarding, but I didn't know. So there was an Olympic Australian skateboarder. Her name is Chloe. She's only 14. 14. Imagine, what were you doing at 14?
But I don't think I want to say it actually on here. No, I was nothing. I was probably watching Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon.
A one fine day when a wolf met a purr, baby was born, caused a little stir. No hoop as an oak, sad frog. It's for the canine feline, little cat dog, cat dog. Sorry, that was me.
Cat dog, alone in the world with a little cat dog. I think we know what we both were doing at 14. No, so the Olympic skateboarding is one of those things where it's like, it's such a random thing. You're like, I didn't think I would like to watch skateboarding, but once you start, you're hooked.
So I do want to say though, Chloe, Australian, 14 years old. Yeah. And last night she was in tears because she didn't set the record or whatever it is she was trying to do. But amazing. If I could have been half the person that she is at 14, I would be more of a person now.
So there's this makes me sound random and I don't know how I started following her or why, but for years I've been following a skateboarding girl on Instagram. Her name is Sky Brown. I've been following her since she was 10 years old. She's one of those people that is like a freak of nature at their sport. She is the youngest ever British, maybe even Olympian out of any country. But at 13, at the last Olympics, she won medals for skateboarding. She was
amazing.
13 years old. So she's back there now, obviously 4 years later. But she's incredible. And she's one of those people that pops up on my Instagram all the time. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm still following this random 12-year-old skateboarding girl. But
I'm not mad about it.
I'm not mad because I'm jealous at her skill. Like the girl has skills.
Okay, well, I feel like a lot of people are checking in and out of the Olympics this year, and we will talk about this a little bit more, not specifically the skateboarding. Sorry for the obscure start.
No, I love it.
But there is so much that's happening in the world at the moment. We also want to talk about the situation that has come up across social media online between Vance, Kamala Harris, Jennifer Anniston, Oprah, and also Hilary Clinton. Who would have thought that all those people would be put into the one basket? But it certainly happened. But first, Britt, how was your weekend?
My weekend, actually, I had a wonderful weekend. I had the most random thing happen to me. And this is one of those things I think is like, how do you know you're friends with someone? Like really, really good friends with someone. You know when people used to say, you know you're good friends with someone if they rock up to your house and they go straight to the fridge. Or you know you're friends with someone where they don't knock on the door and they just open in. You know, my
litmus is you know you're really good friends with someone when you don't have to clean for their arrival. That's it. Like if you can have
someone, you should always clean for them.
No, if you can have someone come to your house and you haven't had to worry about putting things away, then that's a real friend.
Well, I don't know, maybe I'm different because this is like a true testament of friendship, but I also cleaned when I heard she was coming. So my friend messaged me on Thursday. She lives in London. Her name's Laurie. She messaged me out of the blue. She goes, you home tonight? And this is like in the afternoon. And I was like, yeah, I'll be home tonight. Just have a couple of meetings. I was like, why? You want to call? And she's like, no, I'm coming. And this is from London. I was like, what do you mean coming?
She's like, I'm orgasming right now.
Yeah, she's like literally
I got the
in
Womanizer
bed.
2000 and just really wanted to let you know it's great.
She's married. No, she's like, I'll be there in a few hours. I got a last minute flight from London to Sydney. So I'm currently in Perth.
And I need free accommodation.
I'm about to get on a plane now. And I was like, okay. I was like, do you need somewhere to stay? And she's like, oh my God, that'd be great. Thank you. And I was like, okay, I'll see you in a couple of hours. And I was like, fuck. So I actually did clean the house, completely clean the house.
See, when I say clean the house, I think it's a different thing when you have kids. Like if I have people come over, of course, but that's like a stress that if I have to clean the house for them. If they're a real friend, they just accept that the house can be messy and I don't have to fix it for them.
Yes,
that's how I feel.
I'm not sure I've actually ever seen your house that clean.
No, because I don't care what you think.
Yeah, which
But also it's very
offensive
offensive.
or my friend? I don't know.
Well,
which
I don't know whose was more offensive to start with. So
I remember going back to your house when you used to live at my house and you had just had the kids. And I remember it was like a hazard to get in because there were like toy cars everywhere. And I was like, if I step on the wrong thing, I'm going to break my neck. Like it was like a maze to get in. But it was so nice. So she's still there now. She came on Thursday. But it was one of those really wholesome weekends or times of my life that I didn't know I needed. You know when you don't often sit down with someone, like I never sit down with an old friend. So we've been friends for 20 years. We used to live together in London. I've never just sit down and I'm in their presence for a long period of time where you just rehash old memories. And it just filled my cup so much. We were talking about when we used to live together in London. We used to do this thing in London. Don't listen to this, Ben. Semi made me miss my single days for a hot second, only because of the fun and mischief we used to get up to. But we used to live together in Notting Hill, which sounds fancier than it is. Notting Hill sounds super fancy, but we were poor. So we had like this tiny little apartment, but we wanted to live next to the palace.
yeah,
like,
your expats living there. So of course you would have been living in like the smallest apartment.
yeah, but you know the flex of like I live near a palace? You might not know it, but that's what I wanted.
I can't say that that's the most relatable flex for most people.
We wanted to pretend we were living a better life than we did. Anyway, we used to just like go on dates.
I mean, when I was in my 20s, I lived in Lismore next to the bowling club. So same, babe, same.
But we used to go out, Laurie and I used to go out, and we only had this 2-bedroom apartment. And when one of us was on a date, we'd have like these codes. If we were going to bring the date home, would send a message to each other really quickly, like we're in the taxi. It would be like a code blue or something. And that person's job was quickly to set up the house. We had this rule where we would turn all the lights off. We had one lamp we turned on and we would turn on fairy lights outside and we had fairy lights in the house because that's the age we were at. And I know I'm screaming how old I am.
Okay, Britt was telling me this story last night where she was like, I would tell her, get the room ready because I'm bringing a guy home. And she would go and turn the fairy lights on. And Matt was in the car next to me and he was like, tell me one 20-year-old man that wants to fuck to fairy lights.
Okay, Matt. Lots of people wanted to fuck to fairy lights. Fairy lights were a vibe when I was at the palace.
I feel like
when I lived at the palace.
Chicks are like, I love a fairy light. And men are like, what is going on here? I'll fuck to anything.
Okay,
I'll fuck to fluorescent lighting. I don't care.
Exactly. And that's why I put the fairy lights on. No, the fairy lights were used because I didn't want to fuck to fluorescent lighting. Have you seen down lighting? It's not flattering.
It's fine.
My apartment.
We fuck to moon lighting now. Whenever we're about to get it on, Matt will just open the curtains. It's enough light. It's a good amount. It's not too much.
Exactly.
I don't like full light.
Moon
lighting is lovely. So romantic.
Lighting, it's soft. It's subtle. It just
fuck to the
highlights
stars.
Anyway, the other part of the setup was the music. So we had like a boombox and we used to have a playlist. So when you'd come back, we had a playlist that we'd set. You just always put it on. You know it was good. And the reason you have to have a playlist, I know there's a lot of people cringing, like people don't actually fuck to playlists. But when you're a flatmate in a tiny flat, you have to have something draw out the music. So the person always put the playlist on, but we couldn't stop laughing this one time. There was this guy that I would really, really crushing on and Laurie knew that. So we're on the lounge, you're getting freaky. She knows she's not allowed to come out of the room. Really hitting it. It's probably like got Dirty on from Christina Aguilera or something. But then the music would just change, not from playlist. The music went rogue and the music would go to like the Titanic theme song. Like literally the Titanic theme song.
How does the Titanic theme song go again?
You're here. There's nothing to fear. That song.
My heart will go on.
My heart will go on. Celine Dion.
Oh, she's having
Classic.
a real moment. Bring it back.
Well, she was having a moment when I was also having a moment. Yeah. So in my lounge room when I was sleeping with my crush, she was having a moment. So that song started to play. Now that is not on my have sex playlist. After that, and I was like, oh my God.
My heart will go on. What else will go on?
You could have sex to My Heart Will Go On. Like, I'm not against it. I don't hate it.
No.
Especially if you were in that position where your arms are out, like a T. And
No, do you know all I could think about was the hand that goes on the window and the sweat that like drags down the window is there. And I was just like,
kind of on Friends.
And in my head, I started to laugh because I knew what she was doing. I knew she was in the other room controlling the playlist when I was having my big moment. I was trying not to giggle, but I was like, okay, she's only going to do it to one song and then it will hit back in. So I'll get in. So I'm grinding away, doing whatever I'm doing. And then the next song is like, can you feel the love tonight? And I'm mortified. At this point, she's going rogue and she's just playing every like embarrassing, messed up love song that you can imagine. And I'm
Did
like,
the guy say anything at this point? Was he like, interesting playlist?
it went soft.
No, he did not.
Can you feel the love tonight? No, I can no longer feel the love tonight whatsoever.
No, I can.
I don't want to story top you, but I do have a story that is so similar to this. It was 10 years ago. I'd started dating a musician and I had 2 housemates and they were shit stirrers. And there was one night that we came home. They'd known that we'd been on a date. And this was in the early stages too. We didn't know each other that well. They'd known that we'd come home. Things had like heated up and out of nowhere. So there was no music on. Out of nowhere, they started playing his music really, really, really loudly throughout the whole
artist. So as you were having sex with him, his own music was
He
playing.
kind of stopped it because, like, to me, it didn't really register because, like, it was just a song. You know, like to me, it was
wait.
His own
As
music.
in the guy that you're fucking's
Yes.
music.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So there was no music on, and it didn't really register to me because I didn't know his music word for word. But he stopped at one point and just looked at me, and I just
so
thought that
funny.
they'd started playing music because they wanted to drown a bit of the sound out. And he was like,
Is
"Do
that
your
my greatest
housemates
hits?
know?
You're
Do
like,
they know that I'm here?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" He was like, "Because can you hear me
That's
singing?"
so embarrassing.
I was so embarrassed. Yeah, no, he fucked to his own soundtrack, which is
do you know what? I reckon he probably did that anyway. Don't you reckon he comes back when he brings chicks back to the house?
I hope not. I would really hope not.
I reckon I would. I reckon if I was an artist that had like greatest hits,
I believe that.
I would
There's nothing.
100% put that on in the background
Britt
and be
puts her
like,
own podcast on to bed.
ew, no, I would never do that. But I
It's
would
just Brit's laugh over and over and over.
that is a mood killer. If anything's going to kill the mood, it's my
I want to fuck to the laugh.
Oh, my days.
Oh, okay. Well, look.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was good in some ways and then terrible in other ways. As you guys know, I've spoken about it quite a bit recently. My stepdad, he's really, really unwell. So we spent a lot of time at the hospital on Sunday. But on Sunday morning, something very funny happened. So let's talk about the funny things and not the sad
Yes.
things. So Sunday morning, we went to a friend's house who is renovating. So we went to their house that's like in the midst of a renovation. And because they're renovating near us, they were like, oh, just go and get the keys, go and have a look. Like we want you to see where we're putting things and the layout of the house. And they're really excited about it. And we went and picked up the keys and we went over and we were walking through the house and it's going to be fucking great. And as we were going through, Matt, which also takes me to the conversation that we had last week on the podcast around can tradies shit in the house if they're working on it. Okay, but imagine this. This house is fully gutted, right? Like the toilets are still on because they have no portaloos. So like everything is still functioning, but they've gutted the walls and the interiors and the floors because they're doing like a light cosmetic reno. So halfway through, we got there and Matt had just finished a burrito as we've arrived.
Imperative to the story.
and a coffee. And Matt's coffee is a triple large latte. So he has like a 3-shot latte every single day. So in we are, we're walking around this house and it looks great. We've been there for a while now and all of a sudden Matt goes, I'm just going to go to the toilet. So off he goes and he comes out and he is white as a fucking ghost, like completely white from the top down. And I'm like, what happened? And he goes, I just assumed. And I was like, you just assumed what?
Oh, no.
And he's like, I just assumed the water was still on because there's no portaloo here. And I was like, what do you mean? He took a shit in their toilet and it did not flush.
And I bet you it was huge.
There
like
was
a burrito
no
big.
water in the cistern. There is no water in the. I was like, you just shit into a dry toilet and thought it was.
So there wasn't toilet in the bowl?
There was
water
no
in the
water.
bowl?
Nothing. Nothing. He didn't look. He just went and sat down and did it. And now he had to email that. He called our friend and our friend was like, I'm not dealing with that. And so he had to email the builder and say, I'm so sorry because we couldn't find the water to turn the water back on.
You just put your hand in a bag like a dog shit and pick it up.
But it's still smeared on the sides. What do you do?
I feel sick.
He covered it in toilet paper, patted it down, shut the lid, and then emailed the builder and was like, I am so deeply sorry, but I did a shit in your unflushable toilet downstairs.
that
so
is,
bad.
he should have picked that up like a dog poo.
I'm so
You can't leave
But with
it
what?
With
like
what?
who
A
has
plastic
bags?
But from where?
Well, the burrito he just consumed.
It was paper.
Pick it up. Oh my God.
The shit's still there today.
Those builders.
Oh my God, you've just reminded me.
Imagine coming in after a weekend. Like you had the weekend off, you come into the site
Mexican is this particular type of
and
shit
it's been
too.
there for 2 days.
Laura, you've just reminded me that we had someone write in about you and poo.
Oh God, what did I do? I'm so confused.
So a listener wrote in and said, I just had my forever bestie call me to tell me that she was driving home from work in Bondi and stopped at a pedestrian crossing. Suddenly, she recognized the person and the dog walking across the road.
Yes, I know what this is.
It was none other than Laura and Buster. Now, Laura had her hands full and on the phone while Buster was just walking across the crossing.
With no lead as well, but I'll explain why in a second. Don't come for me, fucking Waverley Council.
Halfway across the road, Buster stops in the middle of the pedestrian crossing to take a giant shit. She said it was the funniest thing she has ever seen. I hope Laura will bring this up because let me tell you, I nearly wet my pants. Let me tell you, Laura has not brought this up. Laura, we need to know. Did you pick the poop up on the crossing? Because this girl needs to know.
I went back and got it. Guys, this literal shit happens to me so often that this didn't even register as a story to tell. So, okay, this happened on Friday last week. I was walking out. I actually had just left the vets. Buster has a slip disc in his back.
Slip dick? He also has a slippy dick. His dick is always out.
He has a slip disc in his back. He fell down the stairs at our house about 3 weeks ago and it's been getting progressively worse. Anyway, on Friday, he was not in a good way. And we took him to the vet and he's now on like muscle relaxants. Anyway, he couldn't be on the lead because every additional pull and stuff is hurting his spine. So I was walking back across the pedestrian crossing and he wasn't on the lead. I was on the phone to Matt being like, okay, he's got a slip disc and he's got to be on this medication now. And then I looked down, he has stopped, not in the middle of in the middle of the road. The cars are on either side and he's hunched over dropping a huge shit in the middle of the
I'm actually really mortified.
So I didn't know what to do because I was like, I don't want to pull him because he's in pain. I ended up having to like pull him off the road. And then
he had also had a burrito.
One car went and then I had to run back and pick it up off the middle of the road. Half it was squished and the other half was still good to go.
At least it wasn't dry in a toilet bowl for 2 days. What is with the men in your life at the moment?
I would die if I was halfway across the crossing and my dog took a dump and I didn't have a bag
it was a lot.
I would die.
It's also so thank you for sending that in. That is exactly what happened. He took a dump in the middle of a pedestrian crossing. And this lovely old man who was like also crossing the road at the same time goes, oh, don't worry, love. Bit of an inconvenient timing, isn't it? Thank you.
You're like, if only you knew.
You're like, my life is so shit right now.
Everything is falling apart. Something that I wanted to talk about, and I feel like I don't feel like it. It has completely overrun every single media outlet that there is. The almost ecstatic excitement, I think, and change and the energy surrounding the fact that Kamala Harris is now in the presidential election and she is running. But it's not so much just her and the fact that she's in this powerful position now. It has specifically been a conversation that's circulated around JD Vance. Now, I'm sure you have heard of this, but JD Vance, he's the Republican vice president candidate, and he has had some very choice things to say about a bunch of childless cat ladies who are running the country. This is a quote that came from 2021, but just to put this into perspective, I think it's very interesting how only a couple of weeks ago we were talking about Donald Trump getting almost assassinated, right? And it feels like that is such a long distant memory. And what has overtaken it is this more current and more recent debate and conversation around Kamala Harris and JD Vance. So in an interview in 2021, JD Vance had this to say.
I want to take aim at the left, specifically the childless left, because I think the rejection of the American family is perhaps the most pernicious and most evil thing that the left has done in this country. Consider all of the next gen of the Democrat Party. The names are obvious. They're well-known people. Kamala Harris, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, AOC. They're different. They come from different walks of life, different parts of the country. What is the one thing that unites every single one of them? Not a single one of them has any children. Look, a lot of people are unable to have kids for very complicated and important reasons. There are people, of course, for biological reasons, medical reasons that can't have children. It's one thing to recognize that there are people who don't have children through no fault or choice of their own. But it's something else to build a political movement invested theoretically in the future of this country when not a single one of them actually has any physical commitment to the future of this country.
So at the time in 2021, he was called out for these comments, and then he doubled down on it only a couple of days later and had this to say.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children.
Now, rightly so, people are fucking angry about this. But I do think it begs the question, which maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with, but why has this come back up? So this happened in 2021. We're obviously now in 2024. Like, why is the media making a big, massive song and dance around this now? And the reason for that is because Hilary Clinton tweeted just the other day, and she was the one who brought this back to the surface. Her tweet said, "What a normal, relatable guy who certainly doesn't hate women having freedoms." And then she posted just a direct quote which said, "The childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and have no direct stake in America." This has gone on to have real prolific coverage. So Jennifer Anniston has jumped on the bandwagon and given her 2 cents about it. Oprah Winfrey has given her 2 cents about it. And it's created such a media fury. Now, I think that anybody and anyone who's listening to this would probably feel the same that we do around how negligible those comments are and how minimizing they are of women who have made the choice of their own volition not to have children. But I do think it's interesting the timing of which this has come back to the surface. And I do think that it is a very clever marketing tactic that has been taken in order to rewrite the big conversations that are happening in media at the moment.
Well, fast forward to last Friday when he was interviewed on the Megyn Kelly show. This is what he had to say.
I know the media wants to attack me and wants me to back down on this, Megyn, but the simple point that I made is that having children, becoming a father, becoming a mother, I really do think it changes your perspective in a pretty profound way. This is about criticizing the Democratic Party for becoming anti-family and anti-child. And I'm proud to stand up for parents. And I hope that parents out there recognize that I'm a guy who wants to fight for you. I want to fight for your interests. I want to fight for your stake in the country. And I think it's profoundly weird and dangerous rhetoric. As you know, I think most parents would say professional achievements, whether you're a mom or a dad, all that stuff eventually fades away. The thing that you're most proud of is having kids, what your kids do, the relationship that you have with your family. That is what I think brings the most meaning to life is family, not all these weird little accomplishments and degrees and everything else, right? It's family that really brings the most meaning to our lives.
I did go and listen to everything that he had to say, and I went back and watched it more in depth because the highlight reels that were going around the news were just like the really, really bad bits about the crazy cat lady and being miserable because you don't have children.
And wanting to make the entire population miserable
Yeah,
as a byproduct
yeah.
of your own misery because you don't have children.
But there was a part of me, and I will say it, there's a part of me that understands what he was trying to say. There's a part of me that understands that he's saying, well, if you haven't experienced something and you will never experience it, do you completely, fully, wholly understand that situation? I do understand that on a level, but he shoots himself in the foot by being like a misogynistic fuckwit and making statements about being miserable with no children and the fact that you can only be proud of your life and feel whole if you've had kids. Like that last part where he says, it's my favorite part, where he says like your weird little achievements like degrees and things like that. I feel like, how is this somebody that is running for presidency? Like, how is this somebody that could be leading the country and he's shitting on people that have weird little degrees?
Well, I like the weird little achievements, like potentially being the president of the United States. I think the big issue and the reason why there's such an uproar, and maybe I feel a little bit differently to you about it, Britt, but I don't
think so. I think we're the same.
No, I listened to the entire speech as well, and I understand what he was trying to get across, and that is that, you know, for a lot of people who have families, being a parent is one of the great achievements that you have in life. I don't think anyone is debating that, but I do think it comes into play the same conversation that we had around Butker and his speech at the graduation. It's being told that that is your greatest achievement. And I think that the second part, which I don't agree with, he's saying that if you are someone who doesn't have children, that you only have stake in the game. You only have skin in the game if you know what it's like to be a parent, because then you can relate to people who have children and you can relate to the plight of families and to what it means to be a quote unquote modern family within America. Or, you know, and I think that this can apply to Australia as well. That comment to me reeks of what Scott Morrison did when he stood up there and said, oh, I spoke to my wife, Jenny, and she said, imagine if it was one of our daughters. I think it is a requirement of a politician to be able to have empathy, who live lives and have an existence that's completely different to them. So what he's saying is that unless you are a parent yourself, you don't have the skills to have empathy for somebody who lives a different life to you. But that means that if you lack that empathy, how on earth are you able to represent the many different minorities that sit across a country?
Well, absolutely. To be president or vice president, you have to absolutely be inclusive of everybody. That includes people that have chosen or might not have chosen to not have children. And as somebody that doesn't have kids, but I am still well educated and I'm still old enough, like I'm closer to 40 than 30 now. The fact that if I was in America, he's saying that I shouldn't have as much of a right to vote because I haven't had a child gobsmacks me.
I think rightly so. There's so many successful women who are so angry about these statements. And it's not just successful women, but it's people in general. But I think for you, Britt, when you speak about the fact that you are a woman who doesn't have children yet and that your voting power would be minimized or that you shouldn't have as much say in the way a country's run, all that does is it reinforces that the most valuable thing a woman can do with their life is reproduce. And I think women are working so hard to be seen and to be shown as multidimensional and having agency and choice over the route in which we take with our lives. But also something that adds to this idea that JD Vance and his overarching views are that family is the most legitimate path for a person is he goes on to say this. Vance said that parents should have more voting power than childless Americans. Let's give votes to all children in this country, but let's give control over those votes to the parents of those children. When you go to the polls in this country as a parent, you should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than people who don't have children. Now, the reason for this is because he's saying that as a parent who is going to have children growing up in the country, he's saying that they have more of a stake in its future.
It's wild to me that he says just because you don't have children, you shouldn't have the same voting rights. Like just because you don't have your own biological children does not mean you don't have a stake in what happens in the future. The thing that I find really funny here is that Kamala Harris does have children, but they're stepchildren. She has 2 stepchildren that she has been very heavily involved in their lives for the better part of a decade. And her stepdaughter actually came out, her name's Ella, she actually came out and made a statement, which I thought was really sweet. Obviously, she doesn't want to get mixed up in the politics. So it was very top line. But she just said, how can you be childless when you have cutie pie kids like Cole and I? She's really doubling down, making a point here that families don't all look the same.
Yeah.
And I really loved to see it. There were other people in the party, in Kamala's party, who were affected directly and named by his statement, by Vance's statement, and they were in the middle of adopting kids. Like there are so many different ways a family can look, which is what made me upset. Also listening to him say that you will not be truly happy until you have achieved a family and then that's all you're going to work towards. I can't imagine how many women would have read that and been like, what the fuck?
I think the thing though is that it does. And I think that's why so many women in Australia are angry. And like in my friendship groups, I was at home with my mother-in-law talking about this, is because in some way it does affect us. Like these views are held, whether they're verbalized with such conviction, they are held throughout Australia as well. And it's like, I just think that something like this completely shoots yourself in the foot because as you said, Britt, it's heralding an idea of family, but only a specific kind of family. It's like if you've got 2.2 children and you're white and you're a perfectly married couple who've never been through divorce, even if maybe that's how your family exists, it may not be how your parents' family existed. And I say this coming from a multiple divorced household, but now I have 2 children and a husband. So on paper, we match what would be considered the ideal family in JD Vance's eye. But when I look at my family as a whole, it is so fragmented. And I think that it's the invalidation of people and how they live and show up in terms of family that is so problematic by this whole thing. It is important because I think the media has so strongly latched on to that one statement, calling childless women cat ladies who are unhappy with the choices that they have made in their life and want to impart that misery onto other people. Even though that's the sentence that media has latched onto, because if you do listen to the entire speech, JD Vance talks about how obviously fertility issues are something that a lot of women don't have an option over. But he's made the assumption in that speech that either you can't have children because there is some medical reason that prevents you from being able to do it, or if you make the alternate decision and you choose not to have children when you're able to, that you're selfish, that you're someone who's lacking. And the problem with this whole conversation, and I mean, we've spoken about it loads in this podcast, is that opinion is only reserved to women. No one thinks men are selfish if they don't have children. I mean, George Washington didn't have children and he wasn't being called a crazy cat man. Like, it's the inference of the misogyny that's loaded into it, that if you're a woman and you don't want to have kids, that you must be a bad person who lacks the ability to show empathy for other people.
Do you want to know where he really went wrong? Unknowingly, when he made this comment, he shot himself in the foot because he directed this comment to one of the most powerful people in the world without knowing.
Oprah.
No, Taylor Swift. She's a childless cat lady. Like, that is her jam. That is who she is at her core. And
also with her weird little achievements that she's created.
And she's got
for
those
her life.
weird little achievements, like being the most powerful woman in the world, like that cute little thing that she did.
Yeah, it's so true. I didn't even think of her.
Yep, mid-30s, no kids, knowingly owning the fact that she's a bit of a crazy cat lady, like in a good way. But what has happened now, the flow-on effect, is the Swifties have come out in force because they know, even though Taylor hasn't endorsed anyone publicly this election, last election she did publicly endorse Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Like, so all the Swifties have already started tweeting and gotten on the bandwagon of supporting Harris, which I think is incredible. So now they have hundreds of thousands of extra people that are more determined to vote that might not have voted. On top of that, which is probably a very smart move from Kamala Harris, was her theme song for her first campaign ad was Beyonce's Freedom. So she now has Beyonce's fan base and she has Taylor Swift's fan base that are coming together. Who knows who these people may have voted for before this happened, but now they are all publicly en masse rooting for Harris, which I love to see. Like, the worst thing you can do is shit on a woman so publicly and somebody like Taylor Swift.
Well, it's so interesting because I would have said up until a couple of weeks ago, and like, you know, we are not people who get on here and talk about politics very often, especially not American politics. Like, it's fucking outside our wheelhouse. But in saying that, we've spoken about being childless by choice numerous times on this podcast. We did a fucking fantastic episode with Danny Duncan last year. She's a social media influencer, but she has really kind of created an amazing community around herself as a woman who has chosen to not have children. And if you are somebody who is unsure or still on the fence, I really implore you to go and listen to that episode. We'll put it in the show notes as well.
Well, we've also spoken to Karina Irby and both the girls from Girls Gotta Eat, all about being childless by choice. Like, we have done many episodes on this.
Yeah, and I think like there is, and it's still persists in today's society so deeply because, you know, Danny spoke about it herself, going back to this idea that a woman must be selfish to want to not have children. And any of those types of sentiments surrounding this, the only thing that you can extrapolate is that the most important thing that we're ever going to do with our lives is reproduce. And that if you think it's something else, if you think it is your career or you think it is your achievements, then you've only made that decision because the society pressures have forced you into making it. Now, the other thing that's really stand out from this whole campaign is saying that Kamala Harris is anti-family and anti-children. Now, we know that the real reason why that is being touted is because they stand for abortion rights, for women to have the freedom of reproductive rights and to make choices over their own body.
I also think, Laura, on top of that, these conversations aren't happening in silos. He's obviously been called out for something that he said in 2021 and it's still happening now in 2024. But the marketing around this whole like family versus anti-family thing, it's not just happening with these comments. It's happening with, like you said, the reproductive rights that are happening in America and a lot of those reproductive freedoms being taken away from women. They're wanting to take away trans rights and gay rights they have for a very long time. A lot of their policies that they're wanting to create if they come back into power have to do with removing immigrants. They've said that the Democrats have let all these terrorists in. You know, that's what Trump's been talking about very recently. It's also happening alongside the rise of this trad wife content that is this really glorified version of what life used to be like. You know, it's almost like they've wanted
It's the Handmaid's Tale.
They've just wanted to put this filter on the world has gone mad. The left have made this really woke, miserable, men and baby hating community, and we want to go back to the good old days. But the good old days were only good for straight white men. You know, like we're seeing this real division of two types of life that you could live. And if you vote left, you fit into the category of being child-free, cat lady, and Barbie core, like, you know, go women, we hate men. And I think they're trying to create this division of like, if you want to be a wholesome family that has this lifestyle of, you know, organic food and lots of children and good education, like you have to vote right because the left are against that.
Well, it goes back to these conversations around very like traditionalistic values. And I think something that I found really fascinating of what's happened recently. So there's been a rise in the maternal mortality rates in the USA since they've brought in all the restrictions around abortion, which is unsurprising, to be honest, but it's also devastating. I mean, even in Australia, the biggest killer of women back in the day used to be childbirth, but now we have so many more caveats and safety networks around that. We give women so many more opportunities of choice around their body. And this idea that you could be anti-family or anti-kid, the flip side of that is maybe you're just anti-women. Maybe you're anti-women having the choice. Doesn't make you pro-family. It makes you against people having the opportunity of choice over their own bodies. And that's so fucking deeply problematic. And framing someone as crazy or a cat lady or as though they're miserable with their own lives is just such low-hanging fruit. And it's so easy and makes it so simple to dismiss someone and their intelligence, their ability to run a country by being like, yeah, but they're a fucking crazy, miserable cat lady.
It's kind of implying that all feminists hate men.
Yeah,
like it's
like
the same trope. Yeah,
crazy, angry feminists. And it's like, yes, they are angry. Of course they are. Obviously, there's been so much backlash around this, and JD Vance has come out since and said that his comments in 2021 were simply sarcastic and that they've been taken too closely to heart. But he also said this, which I think is fucking hilarious. He said, I've got nothing against cats. I've got nothing against dogs. I've got a dog at home and I love him. Now, this was his apology. He didn't actually say anything about calling a woman a cat. He's apologizing to the cats about the inference that he made. Like, there has been no actual apology except to double down, say it was sarcasm, and apologize to the cats for offending them by comparing them to Kamala Harris.
Because he's trying to say that the point he was trying to make was missing. He's like, we're just focusing on the sarcasm, we're missing the point. And now I'm going to say it again. I understand in a backwards way what his point is. He's just trying to say we want to have a bunch of people running a country that haven't actually put a foot or a finger in that pie. Like, to sort of almost support that messaging is that I can say until the cows come home, I understand what it must be like to have kids, Laura. Like, my family has kids. I've seen you have kids, but I will never understand what it's like to have kids until I have kids. So I understand what he's trying to say, but I think he didn't know how to communicate that. I think he's a fuckwit. I don't support him in any capacity. So I don't want anyone to take that I'm trying to support him when I say that. But I do understand by saying if you haven't lived something, you don't understand it on a level that someone that has lived it understands. And do you think that since you've become a mum, Laura, your perspective and understanding has completely changed? The way you view the world, the things that you think about, the things that you worry about, has that changed drastically from when you were in my position and you didn't have those worries?
I don't think parenting has changed my outlook, but I think it has made me aware of things that I want to be easier for my children when they're older. Like, I don't want my children to experience the type of discrimination, or if they chose something that society deems as being left of the normal or left of traditional, I don't want them to experience adversity because of that. And so they're things that I care about more now that I'm a mum than what I necessarily thought of earlier. I say this because like I want their lives to be as easy as humanly possible, and I want them to have a lot of joy. But has it changed me as a person? In some ways, but not politically.
But I want those same things, Laura, and I don't have children. I want those same things for the people that are living it and experiencing it right now. I want a fair and equal world for them. I want an easy world for them. And I don't have kids, and I don't have to have kids to have that point of view.
There are things that motherhood undoubtedly change in you, but not so much that that's the only thing that you then care about. And I think that that's the really important part of this, is that going back to this idea that if you don't have kids, you can't possibly understand the plight of parents. I just don't agree.
What I think is quite ironic is that he operates in a democratic society where we are all expected to elect someone to represent all of us. That's the point of a democracy. But he's making out that unless you've walked the walk, you can't do the talk.
You can't talk
So he's
the
making
talk.
out that unless you've actually lived the life that you are creating policies around, you're not able to represent a community. And that's completely anti-democratic. Like,
Very
and,
ironic.
and shows like a complete lack of empathy.
yeah.
It's time for Suck and Sweet, our highlights and our lowlights. You know, we never finish an episode without it. I'm going to kick it off. My suck was last night, and this is probably my fault. I gave Delilah some of my leftover nacho chicken. She always eats what I eat. So I gave her some dinner, went to the shower, came back.
Feels like a bit spicy for a dog.
It wasn't spicy though. That's what, because I never give her spice.
A bit
it was
flavoursome.
It was marinated.
Too much stuff going on.
And that was where I went wrong. It was
Did it marinate on your floor?
It did. So I went
in
to
the rug.
Mm-hmm,
Lovely.
the rug. And I have wooden floorboards, and then like my house is wooden floorboards. I just have one rug. Anyway, I came back out of the shower.
The rug feels like grass. That's the problem. They always choose the rug over the floorboards.
It was the biggest vomit I have ever seen. It was probably like Matt's poo in the toilet, like a huge big lump. The only saving grace was it was whole. So I could almost just like scoop, like it wasn't a wet vomit, but it was probably weighed 1.5 kilos.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. So that was my suck. It was the poor little thing, but I'm going to blame myself and think it was
I'm going to blame you too.
My sweet was also Delilah. If you guys have been following along, you'll know she's had a really rough trot at dog school lately. She got kicked out, then she got put on probation. I started with another dog trainer this week, so we had like a 2-hour session yesterday. But my sweet was this week, she got a report card that was like flying colours. The probation has extended. Like she's not being kicked out immediately because she did really, really well. No one else could care less, but this is like a huge impact in my life because it will change my life. If she can't go to a dog school, I'm screwed.
Was this from Jodie?
Jodie, yeah. And I got a
Okay.
proper report card. Like she sent me a report card and it had like levels where she was
What
doing
do you
really
think's
well.
changed and why is she behaving now? Does she know that she's like on her last legs, literally?
I don't think she knows, but I don't know. I gave her a real sit down and I genuinely talked to her for ages about what was wrong, but I don't think that got through. I think, and people are going to question this, I don't know, if you're a dog professional, I think it's also hormonal. I think dogs
She's got a period.
I think dogs go through cycles like women.
Probably.
Where in the month, different things are happening. Like
She gets bitchier.
I reckon. So I reckon she just had good days and bad days.
We've got an awesome episode for that. It's called PMDD. Just send her the link in the show notes.
What's yours?
My suck for the week, there's been a lot going on lately that's been a bit hard. Like I mentioned earlier, I've got to leave here this afternoon and go back down to Wollongong because my stepdad is super, super, super unwell. But also Busty, he fell down the stairs and he's hurt his back. He will be fine. But he's 9 and a bit now. And when we were at the vet was a slightly older lady. And we go to this vet all the time. It's a fantastic vet. But it's the first time I had seen this specific vet. And she was like, oh, you know, he's done so and so to his back. If things get worse, take him to the Sash hospital and they'll do an x-ray or a CT scan. And I was like, well, can I just take him for the CT scan? I'd rather do it precautionary because I don't want to find out that something terrible. Like, I don't want him to go for a CT scan because he's dragging his legs. I'd like to figure out if there's something like that could possibly happen. And she was like, no, we don't do precautionary CT scans. Anyway, I was like getting a bit upset about it. And I was like, look, he's very important to us. He's a family member. And if there's anything that we can do precautionary, I'd rather just do it, even if it costs extra money. And she said to me, darling, you know he's not going to live forever, don't you? And at that point in time, I just didn't fucking need it. And I burst out crying. And then she realized she'd said the wrong thing. So I'm not ready to come to the realization that also Buster is an old dog because he is literally my first child. And I was like, we're not doing that. That's not a conversation that's being had today.
Yeah, when you think about pets, they are your family, and it is a shitty realization to think that they're not going to be here forever. So
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, we know that. I don't know if we need to be reminded
I was
of
like,
that.
you wouldn't say that if it was my mom. Like, you're not going to say that if it's a human. I was like, get a better bedside manner, you cranky old bag. Anyway, so that happened on the week past. And then my sweet for the week is that on Saturday, we had a little birthday celebration for Matt. It was his birthday a couple of weeks ago. I hadn't done anything. And then my beautiful friend Falcon helped me organize just a thing at our house. But it was It was perfect. Like it was just family and a couple of Matt's friends. And it was really special to have a moment where I was like, it's so amazing to have friends who come to your help when they know that you're in need of it.
What do you mean comes to your help?
Well, so I was supposed to organize some stuff. I was supposed to like go to Kmart and get fucking just extra glasses and just shit. You're like running around. You know, when you've got people coming over, you've got to go and do stuff.
Yeah.
And I got to my house on Friday afternoon with the intention of going, I'd finished work early. I was going to go to Kmart. And Falcon and Lulu were in my house and they were already had done it all. And they
Like
were
setting up
already,
and
and they were just doing it, you know. And I burst out crying because I was like, it's so fucking special having people in your life who know that you're going through a hard time and they just step up without having to be asked to do it.
That's really cute.
Yeah, and I feel really grateful for it. So
We love
that was my
Falcon.
highlight. Yeah, Falcon, you're my highlight. Anyway, guys, that is it from us. We hope that you love the episode. If you have any comments for us, if you want to join on the conversation, you can join us in our Life Uncut discussion group on Facebook. You can follow us at Life Uncut Podcast, or you can go onto TikTok and follow us there. The socials have been lit city lately, baby. They have been going off, and you know the drill.
You can watch it on YouTube too.
Yeah, they get everywhere. We're surround sound.
And don't forget, tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends, and share the love because
We love